to another edition of the Market Marauder Show, beating the market one trade at a time. If you're new to the Market Marauder Show, it's an investment channel, helps you to find the best deals in the market. If that's something you're interested in, make sure that thumbs up. Definitely helps the YouTube algorithm promote the videos. Alright, today we're giving you a breakdown of the Biden infrastructure bill. So this Thursday, there will be a vote on the Biden infrastructure bill. This was announced by the U.S. House Representative Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Um, and she said on Sunday that the vote on the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill for Thursday and voiced her concerns that it will, or voiced her confidence that it will pass. So she believes that it will pass. This is not the $3.5 trillion social welfare and climate bill act that is trying to be passed. This is a separate one. This one will help fund roads, bridges, airports, schools, and construction projects. So in this video, I'm just basically going to be giving an explanation of where this money is going, how the money is being, I guess, gathered, and then also some of the stocks that I think everybody should be looking at that you could benefit from this bill. All right, so let's jump into it. So on here, this is directly from whitehouse.gov. So this was published on August 2nd, basically talking about the bill. So the legislation includes around 550 billion in new federal investment in America's roads, bridges, water infrastructure, resilience, internet, and more. So I'm going to break down some of the distribution and how it's going to be distributed overall. So first, let's talk about roads, bridges, and major projects. So the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will invest 110 billion of their new funds for roads, bridges, and major projects to reauthorize the surface transportation program for the next 5 years, building on bipartisan surface transportation reauthorization bills passed out of the committee earlier this year. The investment will repair and rebuild our roads and bridges with a focus on climate change mitigation, resilience, equity, and safety for all users, including cyclists and pedestrians. The bill includes a total of 40 billion of new funding for bridge repair, replacement, and rehabilitation, which is the single largest dedication bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system. The bill also includes around 16 billion for major projects that are too large or complex for traditional funding programs, but will deliver significant economic benefits to communities. So that's 16 billion and 40 billion and then 110 billion. So that's what we have so far on the budget sheet. Next is safety. So the legislation invests 11 billion in transportation safety programs, including a new $5 billion Safe Streets for All program to help states and localities include reduce crashes and fatalities in their communities, especially for cyclists and pedestrians. So that's the safety portion of the bill. Next, we have the public transit portion of the bill. The legislation includes 39 billion of new investments to modernize transit and improve accessibility for the elderly and people with disabilities. That is in addition to the existing transit program for 5 years as part of the surface transportation reauthorization. In total, the new investment and reauthorization provide 89.9 billion in guaranteed funding for public transit over the next 5 years. So that's where some of that's going. And then on here it says it will the repair and upgrade aging infrastructure, modernize bus and rail fleets, make stations accessible to all users through a new program with 1.7 billion in dedicated funding, and bring transit services to new communities with an additional 8 billion in capital investment grants. It will replace thousands of transit vehicles, including buses, with clean zero emission vehicles through an additional $5.7 billion, of which 5% is dedicated to transit, to training transit workers to maintain and operate these vehicles. So they're going to be work programs that are going to be fully funded so people will learn how to operate these new type of vehicles. Next, there's the passenger and freight rail. So that's just a bullet point on here. The legislation invests 66 billion in rail to eliminate the Amtrak maintenance backlog, modernize the Northeast Corridor, and bring world-class rail service to areas outside the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Within the totals, 22 billion would be provided as grants to Amtrak and 24 billion as federal state partnership grants for Northeast Corridor modernization, 12 billion for partnership grants for intercity rail services including high-speed rail, and 5 billion for rail improvement and safety grants, and then finally 3 billion for grade crossing safety improvements. Next, we have EV infrastructure. So this is the charging stations around the world, around the U.S., I should say. The bill invests 7.5 billion to build our first ever national network of EV chargers in the United States, and a crucial or critical element in the Biden-Harris administration plan to accelerate the adoption of EVs to address the climate crisis and support domestic manufacturing jobs. So, uh, shout out to everybody out there who got that double E degree, all your electrical engineers out there, all the electricians, all the construction workers. Definitely going to be a lot of money put out there to build these EV infrastructure uh, platforms around the U.S. Next is electric buses. So the legislation also invests 5 billion in zero emissions and clean buses and 2.5 billion for ferries. These investments will drive demand for American-made batteries. So definitely want to highlight American-made batteries in vehicles, creating jobs and supporting domestic manufacturing, while also removing diesel buses from some of our most vulnerable communities. In addition, they will help the more than 25 million children and thousands of bus drivers who breathe polluted air in their rides and from school. So that's going to be the electric bus section, 2.5 billion and 5 billion going into that section. Next, we have Reconnecting Communities, which has some funds as well. So the program will fund planning, designing, demolition, and reconstruction of street grids, parks, or other infrastructure through the $1 billion of dedicated funding, in addition to historic levels of major project funding for which these investments could also qualify. So that's 1 billion going to that section. The next we have airports, ports, and waterways. The bill invests 17 billion in port infrastructure and 25 billion in airports to address repair and maintenance backlogs, reduce congestion and emission near ports and airports, and drive electrification and other low carbon technologies. Modern, resilient, sustainable port, airport, and freight infrastructure will support U.S. competitiveness by removing bottlenecks and expediting commerce, and reduce the environmental impact on neighboring communities. Next, we have resilience and Western water infrastructure. So for this one, we see there's going to be 50 billion. No, let me read it. So last year alone, the U.S. faced 22 extreme weather climate uh, related disaster events, with losses exceeding 1 billion each year, or $1 billion each. The cumulative price tag nearly 100 billion. People of color are most likely to live in areas most vulnerable to flooding and other climate uh, change related weather events. The legislation makes our communities safer and our infrastructure more resilient to impacts of climate change and cyber attacks, with the investment of over $50 billion. So $50 billion going towards the Western water infrastructure and resilience. So cybersecurity, I think, could eat up a large portion of that budget if cybersecurity is being one of the main functions on there. But I would definitely look at some cybersecurity plays for this one. Bear in mind, it's not financial advice. I'm not telling you to invest or not to invest into any of these plays. Just giving you my opinion on some of the ones that I'll be looking at, which I'll be going through a little bit more when I get through the end of this list. So next we have clean drinking water. So the legislation's 55 billion invest represents the largest investment in clean drinking water in American history, including dedicated funding to replace lead service lines and dangerous chemicals (PFAS). So this is 55 billion. High-speed internet is another one. The legislation's $65 billion investment, which builds on the billions of dollars provided to the broadband development and American Rescue Plan, will help ensure every American has access to reliable high-speed internet with the historic investment in broadband infrastructure deployment. Just as the federal government has made a historic effort to provide electricity to every American nearly 100 years ago. So this will be 65 billion. Next, we have environmental remediation. So the legislation invests 21 billion in environmental remediation. I think I'm saying that correctly now, making the largest investment in addressing the legacy pollution that harms the public health of communities and neighborhoods in American history, creating good-paying union jobs in hard-hit energy communities and advancing economic and environmental justice. Next, we have power infrastructure. So the legislation is roughly $65 billion. Invest includes the single largest investment in clean energy transmission in American history. It upgrades our power infrastructure, including by building thousands of miles of new resilient transmission lines to facilitate the expansion of renewable energy. So this is going to be to help build a new grid. And then one portion I think is very interesting is the offset side. So this is basically them saying how this is all being paid for. So in the years ahead, the legislation will generate significant economic benefits. It is financed. This is the part that should be highlighted. It is financed through a combination of redirecting unspent emergency relief funds, targeted corporate user fees, strengthening tax enforcements when it comes to cryptocurrencies. That one definitely needs to be highlighted. So everybody out there who's got those crypto gains, they are planning to tax you like crazy. On those crypto gains. So just bear that in mind to pay for this bill. The other bipartisan measures, in addition, revenue generated from higher economic growth as a result of investments. In addition, the White House intends to move forward with planning for the auction of new spectrum in the coordination with DoD under the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. So I'm interested to see what new taxes come out for cryptocurrencies. Definitely, if this bill is being funded and that is one of the things that's funding it, I'm interested to see what new legislation comes out when the next tax season comes. So yeah, everybody out there with those cryptocurrency profits, just look out. You may be getting taxed even more for those. And then next, talking about using some of the um, finances from unspent emergency relief. I think that's very smart. And then some of the other ones strengthen target corporate user fees. I really don't know what that entails. And then uh, talking about other bipartisan measures. So it seems like they have a pretty solidified plan on how they plan on financing this or paying for it, but definitely very interesting plan overall. But what you want to know is the good stuff, what to invest in, or what I may be personally investing in, or what industries that I'm looking at based on this bill. So now you have a breakdown of all the things going on. One of the stocks that I think I'm be looking at is ticker sign GOEV. And this is Canu. Canu is a company that makes EVs. They're based out of California, um, out of Torrance, California. It's a startup that came around 2017. They make a lot of EV vehicles. They're also on Wall Street bets, so they definitely have a lot of momentum behind them. I think it's very early in the stages of this one to start to go up. I think everybody's basically waiting to see what's happening with the infrastructure bill, but you saw in the bill they definitely said American made batteries, American EVs. So to me, I would say I would not look at companies like Neo. I would not look at companies like XPave. I would only look at companies like GM. I would look at companies like Tesla. So this is the current price of Tesla. They're at not $791.36 today. So I look at Tesla, which everyone knows Tesla is more than an EV company, so they could benefit more than once with this bill. Lots of money can go to Tesla. So I think Tesla's 5-year outlook is going to be looking fantastic, especially if they're able to get a lot of this infrastructure bill money. So Tesla is definitely one that I'm going to be keeping on my radar to potentially continue to go up like crazy. I may actually personally take out some leaps on Tesla for all you option play people out there. Next industry I was going to be looking at is going to be railroads. So I just typed in top railroad stocks Q4 2021. What popped up is Canadian Pacific Railway because I was not familiar with railroad companies. CSX, which when I thought about it, I was like, of course, CSX. And especially since a lot of these, they said union jobs, railroads are infamous for being union jobs. So there's Norfolk Southern Corporation, which is NSC. And then on here, down below, they also have some more Greenbrier Companies Incorporated, GBX, Kansas City Southern, KSU, Trinity Industries Incorporated, TRN. And if you want to go the ETF route and you kind of want to get all of them together, as far as transportation is concerned, you just want to get a whole basket of things, you can go to iShares Transportation Average ETF, which is IYTs. But I would encourage you to go look and see what holdings they actually have in there. Also, this is not the only industry. You can see on here, cybersecurity stocks is definitely one to look at. Solar, all these renewable energy stocks in general, I would say go look at. So after this, drop a comment down below. Tell me what stocks you guys are looking at. What industries do you think will be able to go up? Make sure you drop some suggestions down below in the comment section. I will go check them out, and it also help everybody else in the comment section down below and who watched the video to see some plays for some things that may go up. While you're down there, make sure you hit that thumbs up as well. That's the price of admission. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.